Okay, so now once we've done our basic building of our topic sentence and we've decided what our argument is going to be, then what we need to do is begin our brainstorming process. Now, a lot of people would consider something like free writing to be part of the brainstorming process, but to be honest, in all reality, it's almost like a pre-brainstorming process. Free writing is typically what you would do when you're exploring your topic and trying to see what you think you might want to write about, and that would honestly be done before we choose our argument and possibly even before we choose our topic. You may choose to free write about how your day has been and stumble upon the fact that you think that community college students are often stereotyped, and that could be your argument. So ultimately, free writing is something you do before you even really begin formulating what kind of argument you would choose, and definitely before you do any kind of structured brainstorming. Most of the time, brainstorming is going to take the form of some sort of idea or cluster map, or possibly a list. Those are the two most common forms of brainstorming, and typically I teach cluster mapping as basic brainstorming for most of the types of illustration that you'll write. And then listing is going to be absolutely something that you would want to use in something like comparison contrast or cause and effect. But cluster mapping can work in other places. So let's go ahead and let's begin some basic brainstorming. So if we start out, when you have your note paper, when you start out, you absolutely want to start out by centering what you think your topic is going to be. So when you're at home, you're going to use a piece of note paper and you're going to turn it on its side, or use a piece of white computer paper and turn it into landscape on its side, and you want to use the full piece of paper. If you are not using the full piece of paper, then you're probably not doing your ideas justice. Now, the other thing is that this is not something that's going to take 5 minutes. This is something that's ultimately going to take about 15 to maybe 20 minutes to fully explore what you think you might want to do. Now, sometimes this may require a little bit of background research. For instance, we're doing Central Piedmont Community College, so if we're looking for resources, we may not be totally knowledgeable of all the resources that CPCC has, or we may have a little bit of brain block, so we'll need to go to the website and look up some of their resources. But ultimately, if you're a student here or if you're familiar with the college, then you would know most likely that these resources exist. Or if somebody said, well, hey, there's a gym, you go, oh yeah, I thought about that. So it would then become common knowledge and not a researchable fact necessarily. So let's start out with what we're going to do for our main idea, and that means that I'm going to put this great big old oval in the middle of the page. So while I'm doing this, go ahead and do this along with me. If you're doing your own topic, you can pause the video and work on your own topic as you go, and then keep stopping and starting the video to keep up with what you're doing, or you could follow along with what I'm doing. So we know that our general topic is going to be CPCC. And we know that our argument is student success. Oops. So in general, I now am aware of what my main topic is and what I need to do to support my argument. And remember, these are resources we're looking for. So we may have to keep coming back and reminding ourselves that we're looking for resources. So when we start to brainstorm, we're now going to pinwheel or cartwheel off of this big center circle. And again, I typically teach this as a really basic map. As you get more and more confident in your brainstorming, you could absolutely research other forms of mapping and see what tends to work best for you. But typically I'm going to tell you that you're going to want to go ahead and make several little legs off here, because you want to challenge yourself to see how many of these resources that you can come up with. And the more that you can come up with, the more you're going to have to choose from for your essay. So if I'm looking at resources that help students to be successful here at CP, then I'm going to start with things that I think help students be successful. So let's see here. So like maybe the first thing would be advisors. And with that, complementary is sometimes instructors. And then we have tutors. And notice right now I do seem to be working in fairly straight category, but that doesn't always work, tutoring. Let's see here. How about campus dining? You know, a lot of people feel that if you guys are fed and there's dining and food available, then you have an opportunity to stay on campus and continue to study and do what you need to do. So dining helps. How about financial aid? Okay. What about veteran services? Okay. How about the library? And now notice over here I did put tutoring, but maybe instead what I should do is I should put tutoring here. And oops, that clearly looks absolutely horrible, so we will try that again. I'm writing sideways, so. Or I'll just put tutors, maybe. And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to get my eraser. And I'm actually going to change this, whoops, to the Academic Learning Center. So now that I've changed this to a little bit higher category, we have tutors, we have a little bit of test prep. I think we have some, I'd have to go and research, of course, a little bit. I think we have some career assessment. We possibly have some workshops, like learning workshops and things like grammar and basic writing. Oops. Try that again. Okay, so now let's keep going over here. How about we have financial aid, library, advisors. Ooh, we have like computer labs. So we have labs, and we have, I mean, possibly we could put language labs here. We have classes. We have clubs. Student government. Okay. I don't know. So now if we look at, say, computer labs, and notice that we have computers. I know that doesn't look like anything, so we're going to try that again. And we have printers, stuff like that. If we go over here to library, then of course we have the classic books. We have online resources. We have librarians. We have documentation workshops. Okay. Financial aid, we have, yeah, I got right on that. Grants. scholarships, work study, so what you'll notice is that these bigger legs right here are your bigger topics, your overall topics, or your main resources. And then as I'm creating these little feathers off of these spokes, these are our sub pieces of our resources. So we've got classes, clubs, advisors, instructors. And so as I go, one of the things I would want to do is continue to flesh all of these out. And the more you flesh these out, the more you can begin to decide what you'd like to do with that information. Now, once you begin to look at all this information, then typically I teach that my paragraphs need to have 6 detail sentences. So if I do 6 detail sentences, then I would probably love to try to pick 6 main resources that I could then support as something that helps students be successful. So if I go through here and I choose one of my topics, then I may decide that I like the library to help students be successful, and I like the computer labs to help students be successful, and I like the academic learning center, and I like the classes, and I like the instructors, and I like the advisors. So at this point now I've chosen 5 main ideas that I think would make good supporting detail categories that now I can begin to try to flesh out and put together into an outline. So clearly from here, the more work you can do, you really want every one of these little, every one of these spokes to be feathered out. You want, 2, 3, 4 feathers in here, and you want this to be very full. Now this is also why you use a full sheet of notebook paper. This is also why it takes 15 to 20 minutes, because you really want to make sure to look at this. Now it could take a little bit longer if you feel like you need to go on the internet and go research your topic just a little bit. But remember, we're looking for general ideas. We know that we're looking for stuff that would be common for people who, have some association and can become familiar with what some resource has. So remember that we're not doing research in order to cite a source. We're doing research in order to gain information for our brainstorming. Now, this is also how we try to keep from plagiarizing, because if we put this brainstorming into our own words and then formulate our outline from the brainstorming, then we're less likely to copy and paste from the internet. Okay, so that's it for mapping, and then we'll get to move on to the next step.